Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about creativity and its flow state. That's a real thinker, especially for those artists that are trying to tap into that creativity and stay into that flow of the motion of feeling all the creativity coming all at you. That's important for us artists. So, thankfully, I have Pauline here who is going to help us really think about this. So, Pauline, thank you for coming on my show. And tell me, when you hear the words creativity and flow state, what does that make you think about?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this podcast. I love talking about creativity and flow state, and I can talk for hours about it. So, to begin with, for me, creativity represents our creative force. In a way, it is our connection to something greater than ourselves that comes out through our unique expression. The way that we are as a personality is how we express that unique aspect of ourselves that is maybe somewhere else, and we are bringing it forth through our creations, through our art, through whatever it is that we do. And then the flow state is that highly focused state where that creativity actually flows, because there's so many ways to block it by having limiting beliefs, fears, anxieties, whatever, blocking that channel so that creative ideas are not able to express themselves in the physical reality. So the flow state is when that channel is open, it's aligned, and all the values that the person has are aligned with that which their higher self is trying to bring forth.
I love that explanation. It's a beautiful one because, to be honest, you know what it makes me think about? Excuse me. It makes me think of that movie, the Disney movie Soul. And oh, have you seen that movie? Oh my
That's
goodness,
my
that's
favorite.
yeah, it makes me think of exactly that, how when he gets in that creative space and when he's playing the piano and he gets all into it and he literally zones out. Oh my goodness, and how they make it so descriptive so we can visualize that moment. That's a beautiful moment. And when you were saying explaining everything that you did, it just all made sense. It just all aligned up perfectly. So I understand why you can say that that's one of your favorite movies because you probably could say, I really capture what I've been to let everybody know. That's a
Exactly. That movie perfectly illustrates what the flow state is. It's that highly focused state that allows you to connect with something greater than yourself, channel it into this three-dimensional reality, and feel
yeah.
satisfied and feel in the moment and feel so good. But as that movie illustrates, when you come out of that state, you think, is this all there is? Is like, what's next? But there's nothing next. The whole point for creativity is that process. The whole point is the journey of experiencing how he looks at the light and how he sees it filtering through the trees and he sees the seed falling down onto the ground. That is also part of the creative expression as we observe it.
Yes, it is. That is very true. That is a very beautiful point to make in reference to that movie because I forgot about that scene. You know what I mean? I forgot about that scene, but yes, that is a real moment where he realizes like, wow, this is what she's seen. This is what she represented as beauty. And when you're able to see somebody's perspective, man, it gives you a different understanding, a different appreciation. And that was the beautiful part about that movie as well. And kind of like going back to earlier when you said when you're blocking yourself, man, that's a powerful statement just to use the word blocking yourself because people don't think that they're blocking themselves, you know what I mean? They just think that, oh, it's life or they're busy. But it's like all of these excuses that you use and you tell yourself and you accept, and it's like you are literally stopping your own creativity. You are basically sabotaging yourself, in my opinion. That's how I see it. I mean, how do you see that?
That's exactly right. And to go back to again to the reference of that movie, because it illustrates the journey of the character who was chasing external goals. He wanted
Mhm.
to do something because he thought that that goal is going to give him that feeling that he wanted. And what happened? He died because he
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention, because he was chasing something. That is how blocking happens. We look for external things to give us this fulfillment and satisfaction that only the process of creativity can do that. And once you realize that, then there is no need for chasing anymore. You can just be in the flow of the moment, and that would be sufficient. But that is the shift that needs to happen for people to realize, are they chasing some kind of external goal that they think will get them somewhere because of fears? Because they think, well, I need to get this thing because if I don't get it, then something bad will happen. So I have to keep chasing things. And when they do catch that and realize, well, that feeling is nowhere to be found. Okay, I need to catch another thing. I'm going to set another goal and I'm going to chase something else. And when they catch that, then they get disappointed again. And that
Yeah.
is the definition of blocking the creativity because you are attaching it to the external aspect.
Yes, that is a beautiful thing. We are constantly looking for external avenues to satisfy us, to complete us, to make us feel happy, to make us feel joy. We have all of these excuses for these attachments, but in reality, we are whole all by ourselves. And when you are able to tap into that creativity, tap into that imagination, you allow yourself to just be you without any remorse, without anything at all. You're just you. And if more people realize that they can just be them unapologetically, I think the world would be most definitely a better place. You know what I'm saying? So I'm curious for you, when did you realize that you needed to start tapping into this creativity and flow state more versus when you weren't? Or was this always natural to you?
Yes, so my journey started a while ago because I was growing up with art surrounding me. I had art school, I had music school, I had dance.
Wow.
Everything was creativity for me at that time. When I was in high
Okay.
school, I finished fine art school. I got trained in the realistic technique of art and painting, that those are my painting behind me. And
Wow.
so I was surrounded by creativity and art, and that seemed normal and natural. But as I
Mhm.
progressed, I realized or thought or got convinced that I needed to do certain things and perform certain tasks in order to get that external validation, in order to be valued, in order to be perceived as respectful and reliable in this world, and in order to make money, essentially. That belief of artists don't make money, the starving artist concept, that has
That's true.
always been in the back of my mind. And so I moved into analytical professions. I spent many years in project management. And at one point, I realized that I have not been engaged in my creative pursuits at all. And there
Yeah.
came a point where I realized that I wasn't going to get there if I didn't change something. So I started really uncovering what beliefs did I have, and it was a multi-year process of understanding myself. Why did I do the things that I do? Why did I thought the thoughts that I had? All of that, I started disassembling it piece by piece. It's called shadow work, essentially. You're looking in the
Yeah.
dark corners and starting to unravel things that you didn't want to look at. And so
Right.
I learned what kind of needs I was fulfilling, what kind of achievements I was trying to get, what kind of external validation I was seeking because I didn't feel like I was enough. And
Yeah.
so that process has led me to this moment where I have been integrating my analytical and my creative aspects together in one cohesive whole system. And so that is how it's been for me. And in but 2019, I discovered this flow state science and the words and terminology for that which I have been seeking all my life. And when I did that, things started to make sense. And after that, it became crystal clear to me that this was my passion. I was obsessed about peak performance and flow state, and it merged exactly with my creativity. And it
Wow.
allowed me to understand what I needed to do. And now I can actually help others as well to unblock that creative channel. But it was quite a journey to understand, and it still continues. No, the work is never done, but
Yeah.
I can know more now.
Yeah, but that's good. At least you can acknowledge that it's a work in progress and there's still so much to excuse me, to discover within yourself. Because I think, like I said earlier, once we start realizing, going back to ourselves, how much beauty and how much like resilience and how much, oh my goodness, so much we have within us, we have to remove those fears, remove those words and scenarios and all of these these repeated situations that traumatized us. You know what I mean? Because nobody's exempt from trauma. Every single human being, if you're breathing, you heart and you have a heartbeat, you will eventually have some type of trauma in your life, unfortunately. So to remove that or move it in a different direction or a creative direction, man, that's a beautiful thing to be able to do, to be able to help people in that manner, because so many people out there need this help. Businesses, school systems, you know what I mean? So many people can implement this in just their organization. And once you figure it out with yourself, you can see how you can put it in different places as well. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you were able to move yourself from one social norm that you thought was acceptable, that so many people deal with that social norm, and then you were like, no, it's time to step into me, to my authenticity. And now look at you doing what you were meant to do without even realizing this was what you were supposed to do.
Yes, it has been quite an interesting journey, and I have learned so many things. In a way, I believe we sort of even choose sometimes our traumas in order to learn something that helps us uncover something. There's a book called The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate, and in that book, he describes that the trauma can be as smallest thing as a baby being left alone for 5 minutes and mother going into another room, and that
Mhm.
can create trauma for the rest of the life that the person would not even be aware of. It could be as little as that. And
Yep.
so everybody, as you said, has some aspects that they need to work through, that if they do realize what they are, they can transform them into something that helps them unlock a part of their authenticity.
Yes, yes, that's very good. So, I guess I would like to know your perspective on this quote. I love quotes. If anybody knows me, they knows that I love quotes. So, the quote goes, "The mind's a great place to have an idea, but a crappy place to hold it." What is your thoughts on that quote? What does that make you think about?
I love that quote because, first of all, the mind is not designed to store information. It is designed to perceive, receive, and do something with it. And
Mm.
that is exactly what happens, how we block ourselves too, because we try to hold within our mind different information, different worries, different thoughts, and there's very limited capacity for holding. The mind is designed for manipulating of ideas. It receives them, it manipulates them, and then we act out on them. But if we keep holding them, that takes up the space and prevents any other creative ideas from coming forth. And another thing to that that comes to mind is that we have, in a way, a system in which our higher self creates those ideas. Mind doesn't actually do that. The higher self, something above us, something greater than us, creates those ideas. The brain is the organ that receives that information. It receives the ideas, it trickles down, and we have this epiphany. And the mind then perceives what has occurred. The mind doesn't actually have capacity to create ideas. It all comes from our inside, from the heart, from whatever it is that you want to call your higher version of yourself. But the mind is only designed for perception. It's like a viewing apparatus of the projection that has been created upon the screen. And so that is the biggest distinction. When we're trying to think too hard and trying to hold all this information in our mind and then finding ourselves not creative, restricted, feeling frustrated, that is why. That is the need for letting go and just observing things.
I love your explanation because it really does go in depth. Because when you think about this as just one sentence, it's like, okay, surface value. But when you go deeper, you're like, oh, wait a minute. It holds so much more power to it. And I love your explanation for that. Goodness. So I'm curious again, because curiosity is our thing here. What really inspires you to be creative? What gets that creative reels going?
Yes, I've often thought about what actually inspires me because it's such a varied thing.
Mhm.
And for me, inspiration comes in variety of ways. First of all, images inspire me because I'm a visual artist. I love looking at other visual images that have color, dimension, texture, you name it, pattern, and that inspires me. But in addition to that, the deeper mission that I have to bring the awareness of creativity to bring elevation of consciousness in a way through my words and through my works, that inspires me because it has a higher purpose in my mind. If I explain the creative concepts the best that I can, and I can inspire at least even one person, and they go home and they take that concept and apply it and create something of themselves, or a step, even one step closer towards alignment with their true authentic self, then my work is done for that day. So that inspires me, the contribution that I can make through sharing of my knowledge, sharing of what I have learned, and my art as well. That is what keeps me going. I have been creating podcasts myself and creating videos and all other and blogs as well, writing. And behind that is the inspiration of bringing more clarity, explaining something in a way that maybe somebody else hasn't thought about. I always bring a different perspective because of my unique way in which I view the world. And so
Yeah.
my inspiration comes from ability to contribute that unique perspective in hopes that somebody can benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's one single person. Goodness, I say this all the time. One single person can make such a huge difference in their community, within themselves, within their family, I mean, within their job placement, wherever it can be. So it's like you can't limit yourself to say, I want to conquer 100 people. And if I don't conquer 100 people, then that's gonna ruin my whole ego. Like, no. No, don't let someone or numbers control your ego. Remember that all you're looking for is one because one person can change everything. So I absolutely respect the fact of what you say of how it just ignites your creativity because when you really talk to someone and help someone get tap into this, it allows you to be endless. There's no stopping your creativity because you initially know that it's time to help somebody else. And I don't know what it is, but when some people and when they get in that mode of helping, they got their helping cap on, man, they are defenseless. They can conquer anything they put their minds to. And that's a beautiful skill that people forget that we have, you know? We have this ability to help others people, but for some reason we get stuck and we don't. You know, and I know this you talked about how it's kind of like a blocking form. And I think that's another great way to represent this form this as well. Like people need to stop blocking themselves and blocking other people because you're not going to help. You know, we're meant to work amongst each other and build amongst each other and learn and evolve and grow and be something who knows better. You know what I mean? Better. And what's wrong with better? I don't think there's anything wrong with better because it's evolving and it's maturing and it's learning. Oh, we always have to learn and be willing to learn and bring that perspective, like you said, a different perspective. Because when somebody talks to you, you can see, okay, that's where their frame of mind is, but maybe they don't see it like this. So it's like, okay, you're literally grabbing their head and turning it to the next side and telling them to focus on maybe this instead. And I think what is the one of the hardest things when you work with somebody and they have blinders on? What is the hardest part for you?
Well, the hardest part is seeing the potential and letting them
Mm,
be the way
that's
that they
true.
are.
Yeah.
Despite they might not be ready for certain information, they might not be ready to take a step. And the hardest part is actually letting go and letting them make their own decision, not forcing anything, not expecting some, and relinquishing control of
Yeah.
the situation so that it can flow the way it needs to flow. If
Mm,
somebody is not matching with the ideas, if somebody is not ready to perceive what it is that I'm trying to convey, then sometimes the best thing is just to let it go, let it float in its own path. And how do we block ourselves? Often we try to pressure and force things so much. We
yeah.
want to maintain control. We are
Mm,
so obsessed about overthinking how things should be. And those expectations of how things should be is actually the biggest block to the creativity. When you're thinking that you should be reaching millions of people and you're not, that is the biggest block to
yeah.
creativity. And also thinking about ourselves. When the
Yeah.
focus is on the self, it is
Mhm.
not flowy. The creativity is not coming out and it's not serving anybody. So the best way is to let go of the perceived control, focus on the others and just let things flow and flow with it as well.
Exactly. Because it's like you said earlier, it's about don't force it. Don't force it because people are going to see right through it. And you're not, people are going to see, oh, it's a scam, it's a fraud, it's not real. You know what I mean? Because there's hidden motives. And it's like, no, take all that away. Just be you. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Goodness gracious. So, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self?
Good question. I
Mm,
would tell her to just stay the course and do what it is that she was doing, regardless of how much pressure she had trying to fit in. There were aspects that were still important to maintain: creativity, continue engaging in art, and know, well, if I could convey to my younger self that I am enough and that I'm inherently worthy, that would have been sooner that I would have realized that, and sooner would have seen how much emphasis I was placing on external validation and recognition. So if I could convey that earlier to myself, I think I would have been even more creative than I am now. If I
yeah.
knew back then that I am enough, my knowledge is enough, my skills are enough, I am as a person is sufficient and fully, completely here, there's nothing else that's missing. So if I could do that, if I could convey that, that would have made a lot of difference, I believe.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think if a lot of us knew that, I think we wouldn't be suffering with depression. Suicide rates wouldn't be so high. You know what I mean? Let's be honest, the mental health rise that's going on wouldn't be such a rise as it is if we acknowledged that and accepted that and knew that. So for you to say that, I think that is needed for somebody else to hear that so that they can acknowledge like maybe this is a warning, you know what I mean? Maybe this is a wake up call. Maybe this is like the light bulb that you need to just, know that you are enough. Know that everything about you is just fine. You don't need to really fix yourself unless you need to fix your health and then fix that. You know what I'm saying? But overall, your mind just erase all the negative, you know what I mean? Facts. Facts will always prove the lies away. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, you know about the mental health issue. I believe it stems from our expectations. When we
Mm-hmm.
expect things and they don't turn out the way that we thought, we create this idea and elaborate scheme of how things should be. And when they don't turn out that way, that I think is what causes a lot of emotional pain, which is then turns into depression and causes all kinds of mental health issues. And I also find that a lot of people are in a way asleep within the context of this reality. They're not aware. They're not aware of a lot of things. And just hearing you are enough is one thing, but I think it takes a wake up call of a different nature for the person to wake up to really see what they are doing and how they are creating their own reality.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard because sometimes no matter how much situation someone can be in, they can still choose to not see the reality of the situation. And that's so sad. It's so sad to see somebody's life fall apart or somebody just go down the wrong route or just do things that ends up being their own demise. And people don't realize that some of your actions are your own demise. Some of your thoughts, some of your beliefs, some of your expectations, you know what I mean, are just, and that's why I love when you said expectations, because I think I even wrote a blog about that too, because expectations, man, they are ridiculous and they can really shoot you down when not realizing how much hard work that you put into something, how much you've gone so far, and it's a sad thing. It's a real sad thing when people have too high of expectations and then they fall and they feel like they hit rock bottom and then there's nowhere else to go. It's like, no, no, you can get up, you can keep walking, just dust it off and keep going. Just praise the milestones, the small little goals, you know what I mean? Just those little steps. So that's
Exactly.
that's something. So I guess to start wrapping up the show before time escapes us, what could be some lasting words that we can continue on thinking, even though you already literally said a lot for us to think about, to really just ponder on, but what can be some lasting words?
The lasting words is that it's important to follow your passion. It
Mm,
is important to find that which excites you and makes you feel alive, something, some kind of a seed of that driven force within you. And it's important to follow it without attachment to outcome. So, doing it for the sake of doing it, just like we started talking about the soul movie, just being in the moment and enjoying the process itself and the journey and experience of that passion itself without wanting to end up in a specific location and without having expectations of where it should lead you. That is essentially the definition of flow, just following your passion to the best ability that you have without attaching some kind of outcome on it and seeing what can emerge from just this process of being in it. That is the most important part. And when people can give themselves even small blocks of time to just follow whatever the passion is. Maybe they're passionate about going out and riding a bicycle for 10 minutes per day. That is something. Or maybe they're passionate about cooking. So preparing a meal and just being in it and experience it to the fullest. Something simple. It doesn't have to be big. But as long as the person is connected to that feeling that drives them to something that makes them want to wake up in the morning, that
mm.
can solve depression, that can solve anxiety, that can unblock creativity, and it can expand further and further like an upward moving spiral. So, if people can do that, then they can access their own flow in their micro versions of that, and it can lead them to a much better path.
Yeah, I like that very much. That's a real thinker. People that comes down to really taking that moment to have that self-reflection. You know what I mean? And if you're ready for that self-reflection, then you need to take that big step. And if you're not, let's not kid yourself. You know you are. If you're, you know what I mean? You know you are. So it's time to make that leap of faith and have trust in yourself again. You know what I mean? And it comes back down to expectations. We expect so much from other people and other things and objects and whatever we want to label and attach it to. But we have to trust in ourselves. So trust in yourself and really take that step because man, creativity and that your imagination, it only was given to you. You know what I mean? That creativity and that imagination and that purpose to help is only given to you. You don't know where you can help. You don't know where you can help. But as long as you take that step forward and just think outside of yourself, like you said, man, that's really stepping into the unknown of all that you can be. And that's a beautiful fear to have. You know what I mean? That's a beautiful thing to try to experience because man, what you alone can come up with is just for you. And that was what makes you unique. So step into it. Goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. So, so if anybody would like to know more about Pauline, I'm gonna have a lovely photo on my website so you can check out. It's like right there, right under, and you have all the access that Pauline is offering to the world because she has a lot of good things to offer to the world. So why not check it out? Why not see more of what she has? So with that being said, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.